All right, today we're going to talk about foam printing. So first thing I did is I ripped out a piece of paper, and we're going to use this because we're going to cut it. And then you should have 1 or 2 pieces of foam that went home with you, depending on what size you want. I just did this one. I should have probably done this one, but what I did to get my designs down on the page is I took my plate. Here, I'll put my scissors down. I took my plate and then I drew a line. Okay, and then I held it down and went underneath here and then just drew a line all the way around. Okay, so what I'm going to do after that is I'm actually going to cut, and then you're going to look up whatever designs you want. It can be logos, it can be like, I love foliage, I love flowers, I love all that kind of stuff, like my house is decorated in them. So I decided to go with something along those lines. So I looked it up on the internet and then found a couple things that I like. And mine's a little bit more complicated. It's a little more, I'm gonna separate these two here. It's a little bit more intense. So, and I'm not gonna cut them all the way out. I'm just gonna cut this big area here. And then I'm gonna cut this little guy too. It's a little bit more detailed. So if you guys want it simpler, totally go ahead. Like maybe you do an abstract geometric design or something along those lines. Like don't feel like it has to be something out of this world. It can be something very simple as well. And actually, I think I am going to use this big one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over because I feel, well, maybe not. Actually, I'll leave it like this. So I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to cut off this big edge here so that I can transfer a little bit easier. And it's pretty easy to cut, so you just need regular scissors. Let's cut this out. You could actually probably use this to print as well because it's beautiful. I'm gonna try it. Just cut a little strip. We'll try it out. Why not, right? Cut off some of this excess because I don't want that. I just want this pretty design. All right, so I'm gonna keep that off to the side because we don't really need that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my design and I'm gonna put it on top of my foam. And I need a pencil or a pen. But what I'm gonna do then is I'm going to press into here so that it makes an indent in the foam. And my design's a little bit smaller. If I were to redo it, I probably would make it a little bit bigger because my things are getting like sort of on top of each other, right? But it's okay. Live and learn, right? You do have to make sure you're pressing down so it gets in there. So if you don't feel the foam sort of moving or going down under your hand, then maybe just go over it a couple times. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see, but there is my indent of my image, if I can get the light to go on it a little bit. And it's probably gonna be a little bit more organic with it, and I'm totally okay with that. And I'm actually gonna cut this out And I'm gonna cut it close to my design in a shape that I want. Again, really nice that it cuts super smooth with scissors. And the reason I'm cutting it in the shape that I want is because when we print it, everything is going to get some kind of ink on it. All right, oh, where's my other piece? I just threw it off to the side. I gotta do this little guy. So I wanted this off and out of the way so that when I'm doing something else, I don't indent it inadvertently or accidentally. So I'm gonna put this guy on here, and it's very small. This is a piece of lavender. The other thing to remember is to make sure that your image doesn't move. So what you may have to do is you may have to tape it on if you don't have enough time to finish in one sitting, or you just aren't good at holding it down, which is totally okay. I will tell you, I moved this one in the very beginning. I don't even know if you guys caught that, but I did like 1-2 little thing and then I moved it. So we'll see how it looks. Because mine is a flower, it might be just perfectly fine. Ooh, so you can hardly see that, but it might come up with some cool textures. The other thing you can do is, if you can see your piece and you see some areas that need to be pressed down a little bit more, you can come back in and press them down. I will say it's sort of hard to see, but it might be beneficial to do that in some areas. And I'm not pressing very hard now that I've got everything down on here. Just sort of going over what I can see, which isn't easy. Let's face it. And I might be changing up some things because I literally can't see some of this stuff. But I know I've pressed down in some of these areas because it's really easy to press down with. So that's a little bit better. You can see that a little bit better here, just after going over it. So I'm gonna go over this one too here. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is come in here and cut it out pretty nicely. And this is the first time I'm doing these kinds of designs on foam, so to be completely honest, it could be a total fail, but that's okay. That's why we got another piece. And lesson learned, right? I'll learn and I'll tell you guys. All right, so I have some paint off to the side. I'm gonna do it in green just to see how it looks, since it is like a green foliage type thing. And the key is you don't want a ton of paint on your paintbrush because you want it to sort of not go in the crevices. It's okay if it does, and it's going to inevitably do that, but you want to make sure that it gets on the outside more. And sometimes, you know, we may have to come in and make our lines a little bit deeper. Okay, let's test this out. Probably should not have done that on this, but we're just testing, so it's not a big deal. So we're gonna put that down. once you put it down, hold it with a finger so that it doesn't smear or move. And then you're just gonna take your hand and rub it, but always making sure you've got at least one finger sort of anchoring on it so that it doesn't move, because if it moves, then it sort of smears your design. All right, moment of truth. Oh, cool. So definitely very organic. You can see that a little bit better now. All the lines got in here, which is nice because then I can come back in and say, oh, I can't see my middle line, so I can come in here and make this a little bit deeper. You know, if I see some areas that need to get together a little bit more. All right, let's try it again. So just making sure I get all of it, but you see how it has the full effect of the foam. So you want to get it close, but you also want to make sure that it's a nice shape when you do that. All right, let's try it again. So put it down, make sure you put a finger down for anchoring, or a couple. I always like to do a couple in the beginning because I feel like it's more, it's gonna move on you a little bit more in the beginning than it does after you do it, get that stuck on the page a little bit. All right, really pushing it down. Whoa. Okay, so it looks like I put a little too much paint on it, right? You can see in here and here, and that's what happens with printmaking. So lesson learned, too much paint on my brush. I did it a little bit gentler on this than I did on this one, so now we know, right? I wanna test this one out. And again, not using a ton of paint because we learned from that one. And the good thing about foam is if you get a little too much paint in your piece, you can just wash it off real quick, and then and just be gentle, right, because we don't want to make any more indents on it. Wash it off real quick, and then you're able to try it again. So this one, I don't know if it's in all the way, like if it's pressed down enough, but we'll see, because it's a very dainty design. Probably not the best for foam printing. Oh, so that doesn't look too bad. I probably needed to press a little bit more there to get some of that in there, but that's not too bad, right? And remember, it's a mirror image. So like I saw that this side needs to be down a little bit, so I need to go on the opposite side to fix it. The cool thing about foam, and I'm gonna show you real quick here with just a scrap piece, is that you can make different thicknesses with lines. And you can do it directly on here. So if I want, and I'm just gonna do lines real quick, super thick lines, as opposed to a skinny line next to it. I just have to make it wider and press down a little bit harder. And remember, you don't need a ton of paint, very little. Anchoring it down. So you can see how there's two different line thicknesses. So that's the really cool thing about this. I would totally suggest making your design not this small. Or if your design is that small, maybe making it more geometric and not as intricate. I thought it would turn out cool, but apparently not too much. Ooh, don't forget about this piece. Let's try this real quick. So that would be my suggestion for you, would to be making your design a little bit simpler than mine. Let's see how this guy looks. Now it's a little bit curved, so I'm actually pressing down on one end, and I'm gonna roll to the other and roll back and forth. See how this looks. Ooh, I love that. Very cool. So with foam printing, what have we learned? We learned that we can use things that we didn't necessarily intend on using. We learned that we can make thick and thin lines. We also learned that a little too much paint will get into the lines, which is okay, and that happens in printmaking. Also, another takeaway is that Mrs. McKnight made it too detailed. All right, so I would have, if I want to do this, I would have made it bigger. I should have made it bigger and made it a little bit more, less detailed. So maybe I did, here, cut this real quick. Maybe instead of doing all of those things, I do the ones that I love the most, which I started off with these guys here. So I'm just gonna quickly do them bigger. And maybe just do a smaller shoot coming off to the side here. All right, and maybe just doing something like that instead. Let's see how this looks here. I'm gonna cut a little bit more. A little bit more around the outside of it. Ugh, cut that off. So I'm cutting pretty close to my design, which I have to be careful that I leave that line work, or else it's just gonna be a big blob, right? All right, let's test one last test and then I'll let you guys go. But this is a little bit bigger and less intricate. So hopefully shows up a little bit better. Lesson learned. So not a lot of paint. Let's do it off here. Putting it down, having an anchoring point with 1 or 2 fingers. Really making sure we're pressing all the way to the edges, especially since I cut off really close. Ooh, see, that looks so much better. I should have put a little bit more paint on, but you can see my designs a whole lot better than this. So, bad, good, bad, good. All right, have fun.